Hi, this is Chase Utley, and this is the Phillies Show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Phillies Show with Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury, Todd Zolecki, part of the Foul Territory Network. Morning after Game 4 of the 2024 NLDS, Phillies lose to the Mets. Their season is over. In the clubhouse last night, guys, I couldn't help but think about how last season ended, and then this spring in Clearwater when the front office had decided to quote unquote run it back, and how all excited all of these players were about that opportunity because they felt they had enough talent in the clubhouse to kind of finish the job. They looked at those last 5 games of the NLCS last year as kind of just like 5 bad days, but not who they were or who they are. And man, it looked like a stroke of genius for like 2+ months. I was thinking about that Saturday in London. Bryce Harper homers. He does that soccer slide, remember, in front of the dugout. They were 45-19 on June 8th. They were on pace to win 114 games after that win in in London. And then after that, including this NLDS, they finished 51-51. Just a really dramatic turnaround from talking about catching the Seattle Mariners most wins or best season ever to fading out so hard and so fast in the NLDS. What struck you guys is you watched that game last night and saw this season end well short of a World Series.
Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, just demoralizing. A lot of things struck me. Another year off the kind of the winning curve or the window or whatever you want to call it. I know some players will dispute that, but they're all going to be a year older next year, and it becomes a little bit harder. But what struck me is a million things that you mentioned since London. I mean, I hear this stuff that the Met that they're a better team than the Mets. No, they're not. The Mets in a big chunk of time. I mean, since the All-Star break, the Mets are 45-29, including this series, and the Phillies are 34-36 since the All-Star break. Mediocre team. The Mets are a better team. The Phillies got beat by a better team, a team that performed. 2 of the Phillies, they have an explosive offense, an inconsistent offense, but it can be explosive. And the inconsistency, which we feared, we talked about all the time, it reared its head. It hit like 186 in this series. Bullpen had an 11 ERA. They got some good starts. Ranger last night had a big responsibility. We always talk about good hitter versus dangerous hitter. He was like a dangerous pitcher last night. I don't think he was a good pitcher. He put a lot of men on base, and he got some big outs with that curveball. But if he keeps his pitch count more in line, maybe he gets through that 5th. And the Hoffman thing is Hoffman's going out for the 6th, and he's not, having to sit and then go back out there and allow a couple base runners, and then boom, season over. So all in all, I think it's a team that was a very good team early, but it may have just been a hot team early. Definitely lost some of their edge as the season went on. And if you listen to JT Realmuto talk, he thinks that they could have turned the switch. The belief in that clubhouse was we can turn the switch in October, but you just don't do that. You have to be consistent all year. And their big guns, for the most part, did not play well in this postseason. Castellanos had a pretty good run. Harper had that big game. But all in all, too much inconsistency. And the Mets were the better team. The Mets are the better team. The Mets move on, and the Phillies go home with disappointment. They, like you mentioned, they ran a lot back going into this season. That tack cannot be taken this winter. They need to make changes, but I don't know where they're going to make them. It's a very inflexible roster. The Hall of Fame GM is going to have to be very, very creative. and give this team a better chance, I think, than, some of his results at the trade deadline the last 2 years haven't really paid dividends.
Yeah, really disappointing season. There's no question about it at the end. I think they did some great things because they got out of the chute early. They say that you can't necessarily win a division in the first couple of months, but you can certainly lose it. They didn't lose it. They came out of the gates. That was something that was really important to them. They came out of the gates really strong. And really at the reason why they were so strong, I think, is that their starting pitching was just insane. And if you really go back and look at the schedule, it really wasn't that tough for them. They had a really tough schedule, and the teams that they were playing at the time were just not very good teams. On top of that said, you still have to win the games, but their pitching was extraordinary. I mean, you start thinking about the guys that were pitching really, really well. I mean, you had Wheeler, obviously. You had Ranger, who was insane. He was a Cy Young candidate out of the chute, right? First couple of months of the season. Nola was pitching pretty well. Sanchez was throwing the ball pretty well as well. So, they even had, who was the fifth starter was outstanding.
Turnbull.
Yeah, Turnbull was, insane. I mean, in the first, few starts before he went down. As far as the offense is concerned, I mean, it is clear to me now that this is as we talked about, a very dangerous team. It's not a winning lineup because it doesn't make enough consistent contact, doesn't make quality outs. When a guy like Alec Boehm, who's supposed to be one of your better hitters, really basically went off the face of the earth for about, and it started happening actually right after the All-Star break, I think. He sort of went south. I know people talk about the hand, but he was sort of going south right after the All-Star break. His second half of the season was not very good. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it wasn't very strong. He had a very, very good first half, obviously, to make the playoffs. And I was thinking that he was really going to, catapult forward, but he didn't. Guys like Stott and Marsh really didn't do very much. They were not productive players.
No.
I was very, very disappointed in that. I thought, the center field, I thought Rojas did okay. I mean, there was some improvement in his stuff, but, he's still very exploitable. He's not a great offensive player. He may never be. I think that there's a lot of changes that have to be made in an outfield. That center field, left field situation is scary. There's not much there production-wise. I don't know what Dave Dombrowski is going to do about that, but they're going to have to fill it with people who I believe are going to have to make better contact and have better grinding type at bats and less streaky players, because you have a streaky player in Schwarber, Turner, Harper's a little less streaky. He's a little streaky as well, but less streaky now that he's a little older. You have Castellanos, who's actually pretty consistent. But then beyond that, I mean, and JT Realmuto, who was, off the face of the earth at the end there. Super streaky players tied up in a ton of money, and they got to fill in certain guys in that lineup. They're going to have to, make better contact. The other issue is that bullpen. I like some of the guys in the bullpen. I think Strom's going to be fine. Hoffman's going to be a free agent. He's going to be gone. I don't think they'll re-sign him because he's going to want a ton of money, especially after what we saw here at the end. I just feel like these guys, they have a lot of things to unpack here because it's not a winning roster right now.
And we will be right back.
I love a great deal, but I'm not going to run sprints in the outfield just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. With Mint Mobile, it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan. Purchase and activation is super easy too.
To get started, go to mintmobile.com/territory. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number.
To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/territory. That's mintmobile.com/territory. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/territory.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on their first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Todd,
And we are back.
One of the things one that really galls me about this series is game one. Games ones are so important. You get a great start from Wheeler. You get a leadoff home run from Schwarber, and you just don't build on it. And you're in your home ballpark, and you just don't build on it. There was such an opportunity there, and this team just fumbled it away.
100%. And Matt Strom last night said, man, it was right there in front of us if we could have just gotten back to Philly for game 5 with Wheeler on the mound. And I understand what he's saying, but I also agree with what you're saying. They had that. They had that moment. They had that moment. They had the moment at home with Zach Wheeler, and they blew it. They did.
The one thing that struck me really was that I think the Mets wanted it more. They were looser. They were more relaxed. They were playing with some more passion. I shouldn't say they wanted it more, because I'm sure that the Phillies wanted it, but they played with a passion that was different than the Phillies did. The Phillies did not do everything they possibly could to win the game. They did not bear down and swing at strikes. They did not foul pitches off when they needed to. They did not move runners when they had to. They did not do the things that you have to do to be a winning team. And that's what, if I was sitting up there, and in a lot of ways I was sitting up thinking as a GM or thinking as a coach or something like that, I'm thinking they're not doing the things that need to be done to win this freaking series. And the Mets did. And so in some ways they lost the series. In other ways, the Mets won it.
The Phillies they had enormous expectations, and they played tight. And what you're basically articulating is the Mets played free and easy with house money, and they were relaxed. And when you are, you want to play with intensity and focus, but there has to be a looseness. And the Mets had it, because I don't think, they came into the season not expecting to be there. They're pulling off all these late wins. They have a great second half. They're kind of getting some momentum, and they feel good about themselves. And the Phillies are spinning their wheels for 2-3 months. And, in the back of their mind, they're worried about this series. Real Muto even admitted it after game 2. Tight team, loose team. It's hard to be yourself when you're tight and you have and you're smothered by the weight of expectations. And we've seen it 2 Octobers in a row now. We saw it in the second half of that Arizona series last year. The smothering expectations led to poor at bats. There was, Kimbrel didn't pitch well. You can argue whether he should have even been in the games, but there was a tightness to this team that did not lend itself to playing winning baseball the last 2 Octobers. They haven't dealt well with these enormous expectations that just continue to grow. It's a tough town to play in. It's a tough town to play in, man.
I have just a quick question. I have a quick comment. I would say this, and I'm guilty of this as well. Like I'm not a fan of a player like Jazz Chisholm, for example, but he plays with some swagger, and he plays with some juice, and he plays. Maybe this team needs a little bit of that, because they've got a lot of professional guys who just going to go about their business or whatever. Maybe you have to have a guy that has a little bit of swagger in him. I don't like Jesse Winker. I'm not a fan of his, but.
I think a lot of people aren't.
I think he pisses a lot of people off, but maybe you have to have one of those kind of like quote unquote assholes who goes and plays and has fun, and I don't know. Maybe you have to have somebody with a little bit of looseness. Maybe not that exact player, but somebody who's got some looseness and some swagger, because we didn't see it. They did not play a nice, flowing, happy, joyous brand of baseball.
Don't they have one of those guys in Bryce Harper? That's what he came to town as. And,
I just kind of feel like they were just so tight offensively, and just almost like they thought what we all thought, which is they can't get these at-bats going there. They can't put good at-bats together, and it just made them so tight, because we've seen it. Remember last year they when they're getting on base and they're hitting doubles and they're doing all these gestures, they're gyrating and stuff like that. So when they're hitting, they're doing good. Like they're having a lot of fun out there. I just feel like they just got totally like suffocated by expectations. And I remember something that Nick Castellanos said last night. He said, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And we started fantastic. Everybody in baseball and all the fans were saying, this is our year. This is our year. I don't know if expectations put on the pressure. I can speculate. But one thing I know is that we didn't cross the finish line. So that sounds like somebody who was the last couple months of the season kept hearing about expectations and kept hearing about, are you guys going to mess up the bed in the postseason like you did last year in the last 5 games of the NLCS? Right. And that's,
well, I mean,
listen,
and it's, what's funny is he's sort of semi calling out his teammates, because they crapped the bed. I mean, everybody else did. He didn't.
Yeah.
He played.
No,
he played with swagger. You know, you can say what you want about the guy. The guy played. He produced. He had good at bats. He did things that you're supposed to do as a talent, and nobody else did. Not one guy. Harper had the one good game.
They had 4 good innings. They had 4 good innings.
It's a little to me. It's a little embarrassing, and I don't know what they're going to do as far as like what changes they may make on personnel, or what something has to change, because this is not getting it done. And I do believe that Dave Dombrowski will realize that. I do believe that Middleton will realize that. And I do think that they're going to have some pretty significant changes on this team, because they need a different makeup and they need a different set of players to get them to where they need to be.
I was going to ask you guys, how do you fix this? How do you fix this? I mean, because, okay, you know, your catcher's back. He's not going anywhere. Your first baseman's got 7 more years. Your shortstop's got 9 more years. You got a couple young players in your lineup, but their value has probably gone down a little bit. And you got a humongous payroll already. I don't know how many more big tickets you can take on. What's the fix? I know it's early and something will evolve here. But what is the fix?
Well, this is where everybody's going to start saying you got to get Juan Soto. You've got to get Juan Soto, and I don't think they're going to get him, but I do think that John Middleton's going to be maybe more involved, or maybe if their chance was 5%, maybe it goes up to 7%. You know, because I feel like they got to go out and find a surefire hitter that you can plug in there, and if it's not Juan Soto, Alex Bregman, I guess, is out there, right? You know, I'm sure there's some other guys, you know, nothing's coming off the top of my head, to be honest with you, but there are some, I feel like they got to go out and get like somebody for sure you can plug in there and feel really good about, like, we know what we're going to get from this guy. But they also felt like they knew what they were going to get every day from Trea Turner when they signed him. And he's been so hot and cold as well. And you didn't really hear about the streakiness of Nick Castellanos when they got him, but he's been very streaky the last few years. So,
Schwarber. So I mean, Schwarber as well. He's been super streaky too, with the strikeout streaks. So, I mean, to me, you got to get bona fide guys who makes consistent contact. A 300 hitter with 370 on base percentage. That's what you need, and you need 1 or 2 of those guys. You need at least one of them, because you need somebody to solidify the lineup that can make a quality out. Yeah. And 1 or 2 of those guys, and somebody's gonna have to step forward. Like Stott's gonna have to change his whole. Stott could not get to a 92-mile-an-hour fastball at the end of the season. He was either super tired or he forgot about using his top hand. Bohm could not get to a fastball on the inside part of the plate. Something's going to have to happen. I don't know whether those guys are going to get moved. I don't like Turner at shortstop. I think he is. He can be a detriment to shortstop. I think he's a guy that they have to at least consider moving off short for me. I think he's a great athlete, supreme athlete, but I think it also would give him a lot less things to think about if you just put him in the outfield further away from the baseball. Put him in left field. That solves one of your outfield issues. Slide Stott, maybe the shortstop. You don't have to worry about Stott having as much offense, and let him worry about defense. Look for a second baseman like Bregman, or third baseman. He can play anywhere in the infield. He could probably second or third. There's a whole bunch of things that can happen. Aiden Miller may have to step forward and be the guy, and stick him in there somewhere, second base or something, or give Crawford an opportunity to battle in center field I mean, maybe you just have to push some of these young guys and give them opportunities. Other teams have done it. I'm not big on that, but hey, I think you got to shake some things up and put some heat on some people.
Well, we know Dave Dombrowski's not afraid to promote young players. He said it many, many times since he's been here. Now, the next year is going to be the opportunity to really prove it with Miller and Crawford both finishing and Redding both having great seasons. The Phillies are super high on both of those guys. Andrew Painter, not that starting pitching is an issue, but they expect him to compete and pitch for this in the rotation at some point next season. So yeah, maybe you try to add a big bat and hope that Crawford can push somebody in center field, and maybe Aiden Miller can push both Bohm and Bryson Stott. I mean, well, he can push both Bryson Stott, right?
Aiden Miller was in high school,
Yeah.
16, 17 months ago.
That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. I know it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I also do think they have starting pitching issues. If I watched this team all year. There was a big drop-off in 4 and 5. They didn't have pitching depth. After Ranger and the fifth starter had a lot of trouble. So I think they could use more starting pitching, and they know it. They pursued Garrett Crochet at the break. What does that tell you? They think they need it. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be a challenge. I expect them. You have too much invested. There is too much tread left on the tire of this nucleus. Though time is ticking, there is some tread left on it. You got to do something to rescue it.
Let's get into them's fighting words. Them's Fighting Words is presented by Shibe Vintage Sports. Get unique throwback Phillies tees, hats, and sweatshirts from local artists at their shops in Center City, Wayne, and Westchester, and at shibesports.com. Of course, you can get Phillies gear, you can get Sixers gear, Eagles gear, Flyers gear. You can get it all at Shibe Sports. So here's a quote from last night, kind of touching on what we're talking about. This is from Bryce Harper. I asked him about the window for this team. He said, obviously it's getting shorter, right? I think Schwartz has one more year. I think JT has one more. But I think at the same time, you don't pay Wheels and Knowles if you don't think you're going to be competitive for the next 5 years. I mean, he's not wrong, of course. Right. They're going to try to extend this as long as they possibly can. But he also sees the reality of this current group. It is getting really short. Schwarber, JT, like he said, Jeff Hoffman's a free agent. Well, Seth's a free agent after the season. So they're going to have to retool and add and try to extend this as long as possible. What do you think about what Harper said, Ruben?
Well, I don't think there's any question about retooling. I've had to go through this. I mean, they didn't have any major injuries that we had to deal with. But for us, it was the big piece who went down, and hoping that he would bounce back. We lost, Halladay as well, which we didn't know he was basically broken after the 2011 season. We ran it back with another closer in Papelbon, thinking that, we just needed somebody to lock it down at the end of the game, but all the rest of the guys just got old and broken. So, and we went south, and obviously couldn't work through it. It's a difficult decision, and it's tough stuff that Dombrowski's got to deal with. They are going to continue to go for it. There's no question about it. They're not going to start rebuilding, but they're definitely going to have to retool with a different set of pieces, because these pieces aren't working. It'd be like the definition of insanity, keep trying the same thing and hoping for a different result. It's not going to happen. So the bullpen, a different alineation as far as like their offense, how they're going to attack. Who knows what's in line. I do believe in my heart of hearts that Rob Thompson is or letting him go, and people are talking about that, I'm sure, is not the answer, because he is outstanding and I believe in the guy. That said, you may see some personnel changes. You may see some things happen because you didn't see them making the adjustments that were necessary, especially on the offensive side. Who knows? I mean, Dombrowski will make moves. He's not afraid. I mean, I've been fired by him. And then they went on and win. They went on to win the World Series. And I thought we had a really great staff. But you know what? They brought in Alex Cora and they changed some things around and they ended up winning it. So, he's gonna make some changes, no question about it. And Middleton's going to demand some changes and some action. So
yes.
So we'll see what happens.
I knowing Middleton and observing him for many years, he's going to ask some really tough questions of his leadership, of his GM, his manager. There's going to be an accounting somewhere for this. I don't know where it is. I would agree with you on Rob Thompson. I think he's done an excellent job with this team. And he's not the fall guy here, but I think there is going to be an accounting somewhere. I don't know where. But that's definitely something to keep your eye on.
Yeah. Todd, you got to hit a train here pretty soon, don't you?
Yeah,
out of New York.
I'm still in Queens. Yeah, so we'll be back throughout the off season. We're going to continue doing shows at least twice a week. There's going to be plenty of stuff to talk about. So thank you to all the listeners since we started this on opening day. Thanks to all the viewers on YouTube. We literally threw this thing together at the last minute, like the day before opening day, guys, as I recall.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe 2 days before, like, let's get together, throw a podcast. And the response has been tremendous. I hear from people at the ballpark and just in general about this podcast more than anything. And I know you guys do too. People really seem to enjoy it. And we're super appreciative of everybody that is following along with us. So hang with us this off season. We're going to be back next week, do a couple episodes, like I said, maybe twice a week, maybe more. Maybe if it's Juan Soto sweepstakes, we'll be breaking it down.
And we're going to have some guests too, and some people to talk to, and people to talk, in the off season, and talk about what's going on in the rest of the baseball world as well.
Well,
absolutely.
There's going to be plenty to talk about on
Right.
the Phillies show because the Phillies they need to have a busy winter. This
Right.
team needs a lot of tweaking. They need some changes because they need to support that aging core, high-priced aging core that still has tread on its tire. Harper, Turner needs to be better. We know that, but Wheeler's here, Nola's here, Castellanos, Realmuto. They need to fill in around the edges to support this team and make it better because they're still going to have a nucleus. They're still going to have a high payroll. They're still going to have high expectations. And that's the way it's going to be around here for a while. So they need to figure out a way to make this team a winner that it can have a consistent 6 months. They don't have to be red hot every year out of the gate. They need to just be consistent for 6 months and give themselves a much better chance than they gave themselves this October. And the glaring thing they need to address is the offense. They're loaded with free swingers. They need to figure out a way to get some guys who can barrel up some balls, have some good at bats, while you wait for that explosive core to have one of their hot streaks. So a lot on Dave Dombrowski's plate. He's a very accomplished general manager, and I'm sure he's already thinking about it. And I'm sure John Middleton, he's not going to lose his will to win. No, he's not going to lose his thirst.
Sirree.
He's not going to lose his thirst. It's going to be an interesting winter.
Their toes not in the water. Their whole body's in the water.
Right.
Exactly. They're all in. Guys,
it's a good point. The Mets have a huge payroll, bigger than the Phillies, but they kind of actually had this mindset of toe in the water this year. They had more of a toe in the water mentality coming in, even though they had a big payroll. And then all of a sudden they catch fire and they're all in. So
yeah,
expectations really, I think, just war on this team. Maybe it'll be good to report to Clearwater with some lower expectations and see what happens.
Yeah, no doubt. Guys, I was going to say it was fun, but it's
the season was fun. The season was a blast. I really enjoyed being with you guys, and we're going to be doing plenty more, but really enjoyed being with you guys.
Absolutely, awesome. Man. It's awesome. Guys.
Well, the end smelled, so I'll smell you guys later.
Smell you too, Jim.
This is The Phillies Show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to The Phillies Show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. The If you like what we do, give us a review. Tell a friend. Catch Ruben, Jim, and me on Phillies Nation TV, presented by Valley Forge Tourism. New episodes air an hour before every Saturday Phillies game on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Replays air throughout the week and on PhilliesNation.com. Get more of Ruben's analysis during, before, and after Phillies games on NBC Sports Philadelphia, on the Sports Radio 94 WIP Morning Show and MLB Network. Read Jim at the All City Network at allphly.com. Find more of me at MLB.com, the Phillies Beat newsletter, and occasionally on MLB Network.